My iron that I had for almost a decade broke recently, so I had to shop for a new one, and I thought I would share with you all of my experience with the irons that I've owned in 20 years of sewing. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Sarah, and I make videos about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. I don't know about you guys, but I really hate having to shop for a new iron. It just feels like it is such an ordeal every single time I have to buy a new one. I read all of the reviews, I ask all of my friends, and it just seems like everybody has different ideas. And at the end, I just have to put myself out there, make a decision, try something, and if it doesn't work, I have to return it. And the whole process is just such a nightmare. I know that when you're reading reviews online, a lot of people are coming from the perspective of just using an iron to press their clothes, which is very different from the needs of someone who uses it for sewing or quilting like I do. So I think that's some of the discrepancy when the reviews say that they're great, and I find that my experience is not great at all. Sometimes when you read reviews, I get the impression that maybe somebody just doesn't know how to use the iron properly. And then sometimes it just feels like a coin flip whether you get a good one or whether you get a lemon. And I think that's a big part of why the reviews are so diverse, why some people can say that the iron is fantastic, and the next person is saying it's the worst thing ever. And I've experienced that personally as well. So before we get into the irons that I have tried throughout my sewing career, first I just want to share with you a couple of irons that I have not tried yet and explain why they're not on my list right now. So the first iron that a lot of people have recommended to me, but I haven't taken the plunge, is the gravity-fed irons. Those are the kinds that have the stand where the water's up high and then it like feeds the water down so you can always have steam. I don't really know that much about the inner workings of it since I don't have one, but they seem really great and I would love to invest in one someday. However, they are on the pricier side, and right now I don't really have the space to have that sort of setup, and I'm a little bit worried that my dog might knock it over. So that's more the type of iron that I would love to buy when I'm in my forever home and I have my perfect sewing setup, but it's just not right for me at the moment. Now, the second iron that a lot of people seem to love, but I haven't tried yet, is Reliable. It's another one that's on the more expensive side, so that's probably why I haven't tried it yet. I've definitely heard a lot of good things about Reliable irons, and I've also heard some bad things. And because it does seem like such a roll of the dice as to whether I'm going to get one that works for me or not, I'm just not willing to put forth that much money at the moment for that type of iron. So that's another one that I haven't bought yet, although I have heard really good things, as well as a few bad things about this one. And number three on my list is the Panasonic cordless iron. This one I have been really tempted by a few different times to buy. The thing that I like about it is, of course, the cordless feature. I do find that the cord is kind of annoying just in general when we're talking about irons. My ironing station is a little bit far from the wall, and so I had to make sure I have a really long cord or get an extension cord, and that can get in the way sometimes. So the idea of having something cordless is really appealing to me. I also really like that this particular iron is pointy at both edges. I just think that would be really convenient when you're ironing your seams. The reason I haven't pulled the trigger on this one is that it doesn't stay hot for a long period of time. And that makes sense because you have to put it on the charging station, it gets hot, and then you use it, and then it loses heat. So you do have to move it back to the charging station after a certain amount of time. So I've heard that it's really bad when you're sewing to use this iron for ironing large pieces of fabric, like how you iron your fabric before you start cutting out. It might not stay hot through the entire thing. You might have to wait a little bit for it to heat up in between. And I know that that would drive me absolutely insane, to the point where I think I would probably want to get another iron that's just for that purpose. And so that's why I haven't bought that one, because it's silly to buy two irons when I could just buy one and get the job done. I have also seen a few reviews that the Panasonic works fantastic until one day it doesn't, like you wake up after a year and the thing just doesn't work anymore. So that's another thing that's kind of scared me off. If you have this iron or have used it in the past, I would really love to hear your perspectives on this one, because it does remain one that I'm really intrigued by because of the cordless feature. And really, if any of you have anything to say about the irons that you have owned over the years, good or bad, I would love to hear about it. Let's chat in the comments. Now let's move on to the irons that I have actually tried throughout my 20 years of sewing. And I'm going to go from least expensive to most expensive. And make sure you watch to the end, because I'm going to share with you the brand that I will never purchase from ever again. Starting at the low end, I have bought a variety of the cheaper irons, like your Black& Deckers, your Sunbeams, that level of iron. Usually it's in the price range of something from $25 up to $50. Although I'm pretty sure back in the day it was actually cheaper. It was more like $15 to $30, but you know, inflation. Now I don't have specific names or models of these because I just consider them all sort of the same. They're just a lower level basic iron. For the most part, I found that they were perfectly fine and I used them and I didn't have any issues with them. But I did find that those cheaper irons tended to die on me after about a year. So after having several of these and having them die frequently, I decided it would be better to just spend a little bit more money and try to get an iron that would last me multiple years. So I kind of moved out of buying from that particular price point about 10 to 12 years ago. So it's been a really long time since I've purchased that kind of iron. But if that's all that you can afford, I think that generally you can have a pretty good experience with it. Just don't expect it to last. Now, moving up a little bit in price, the iron that I just needed to replace that died on me, I had it for 9 years, was a Kai iron that I bought from Target in 2016. And I don't have my receipt anymore, so I don't remember exactly how much I paid for it, but it was somewhere in the realm of $60 to $65. Now, this iron stopped working about a month and a half ago. Like, it technically still works, but the issue with it is that I would plug it in and I was sewing a linen piece, and so it needed to be on the very hottest setting. And I would turn it up to the linen setting, but it would only get about as hot as the wool setting. It just wasn't fully heating up anymore. So that's when I decided it was really time for me to replace it. Also, over the years, that particular iron has a ceramic coating on the sole plate, and that had kind of worn down over the years. You would basically expect something like that to happen. But besides that, that iron really did last me almost a decade, and I didn't have any issues with it. And so I did go ahead and replace it with another Kai iron. Let me show it to you. This is the new iron I bought. I just got it in the mail yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to take it out of the box yet, let alone try it out. And by the way, I will link as many of these irons as I can down in the description box. The links that I use are affiliate links, and so if you make a purchase using my links, I will get a small commission, and thank you for your support. My new iron is basically identical to my old iron, at least from the box. It looks very, very similar. I can't really tell what any of the differences are. However, the price point is quite a bit higher. It was about $95 after tax. Because it does look so similar to my old one, I'm assuming that the price increase is just inflation. It doesn't have more features or anything than my old version that I bought 9 years ago. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to actually use it yet, and so maybe I'll do a short a little bit down the road where I can report back and let you know how the iron actually functioned. But based on my other one, I'm expecting it to work out just fine. But TBD on that one. Now, the next iron that I want to talk about is a Rowenta Focus, and I can't remember all of the numbers of these, but they will be down in the description box. This was the iron that I tried to replace my Kai iron with. I bought it a couple of weeks ago. It was about $86 after tax. And I did post a lengthy YouTube rant about this iron before I returned it. Now, having looked up the manual on this after I returned it, I think I just got a lemon. I got one that didn't function correctly. My primary issue with the Rowenta iron is that it would not stay heated up. It took a significant amount of time to fully heat up, like much longer than my old Kai iron. And then for some reason, it would auto shut off after 2 minutes. And according to the manual, it's supposed to shut off after 8 minutes. So that's why I think I just got one that was broken. But it was absolutely maddening to try to use it because when you're sewing, you're constantly getting up and down. You're at your machine sewing a seam, and then you go over to the iron and press one seam, and you pin something and go back. So you're just constantly going back and forth and using your iron in short stints. And every single time my iron would auto shut off, and I have to wait for it to heat up again. And I just couldn't deal with that. It was so incredibly frustrating. Also, when I didn't wait for it to fully heat up and I tried to use the steam button, it would just spray water everywhere, which makes sense. It's going to do that if it's not fully hot. And I was sick of having to wait for it to get fully hot, so I was a little bit impatient there. So that iron just did not work out for me. I did get a few questions about where that iron was made, and I looked it up, and it is made in China. I don't know if that's a real issue or not, if the Rowenta irons in Germany are superior to the ones made in China. I mean, China's been making things for so long that you would think that they would have the processes in place by now. Some of the criticism about made in China things I honestly think is just xenophobia, but I don't know if maybe there is a real difference in this particular case or not. All I know is that this particular iron that I bought from Rowenta was a lemon. It did not work the way it was supposed to, and I sent it back because I just couldn't deal with it. And although, like I said in the beginning, I totally think it is a crapshoot. Sometimes you get a good one and sometimes you don't. But after having that experience, I didn't want to buy another Rowenta and just gamble that it was going to work out this time. So that's why I went back to the Kai iron instead. Now, the last iron on my list was the most expensive iron that I've ever purchased, and it was by far my absolute worst experience ever purchasing an iron. In 2016, I bought an Aliso iron from Joann Fabrics. I went back and looked it up. I got it on sale for $108, but the original price was $180. So this was the most I had ever invested in an iron before. I only had it for 8 months. And if you're not familiar with Aliso, it's different from other irons. in that it is meant to be used permanently, like facing down. It has like a little mechanism where it raises it up so that the sole plate isn't always touching your table, but it's kind of heavy, so you don't want to be constantly like flipping it up and down. So it's meant to always be down. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I'll put in a picture and hopefully that makes it clear to you how this iron is different from your conventional irons. Now, at that time in 2016, I was primarily a quilter and not a garment sewist. I do find that there's slight differences in between the two in terms of your needs for ironing, but it worked great when it worked. The problem came in is that after 8 months, I did do something which obviously I know that you're not supposed to do. I dropped the iron on the floor. Now, I don't know if I'm just particularly clumsy, but to me, dropping your iron is something that happens. It shouldn't happen every day, it shouldn't happen every week, but I would say I probably drop my iron like maybe once a year or every other year. It is by no means a frequent occurrence, but it is something that happens. And I don't really think there's any way to guarantee that it never happens. So this particular Olizo iron, when I dropped it on the floor, all of the plastic parts completely shattered into a million pieces. Like they were everywhere. I was cleaning up shards of plastic for like weeks afterwards. So I was kind of shocked when this happened because, again, like at the time, it was the most expensive iron that I had ever bought. And to me, an iron that's that expensive, where the retail price is $180, it shouldn't do that. I know I'm not supposed to drop it, but it should be better built than that. My Black& Deckers and my Sunbeams, when I dropped them, they didn't shatter into a million pieces. So luckily, or at least so I thought luckily, it was covered by a warranty. And so I contacted the company, explained to them what happened, admitted that I was partly at fault for dropping it, but saying that I thought that this was something that should be covered under the warranty. And my first response from the company was basically to kick rocks. Like they just sent me back a short reply saying, sorry, our warranty doesn't cover that. Have a nice day. So then I replied back to them and explained everything that I just told you, that yes, I know that I was at fault for dropping it, but at this level of price point, I thought that it was not something that should be happening. Was there anything they could do for me? And I had to look this up because my memory was wrong about what they offered me. But when I looked at my original emails, what they actually offered me was a repair service. So they said that if I paid something like $50 or $60 plus shipping and mailed the iron back to them, that they would fix it. And if they couldn't fix it, then they would replace it. But in my head, I already spent so much money on this really expensive iron to have this thing happen that I didn't think should happen, that I was really freaking mad. And there was no way I was going to give them even more money to have them repair or replace it, especially when the fragile plastic was still going to be an issue if I ever dropped it again. Probably the exact same thing would happen again. In my head, that is not just something that's rare, that is like a design flaw, something that's just waiting to happen. So I swore off the company. I will never buy any products from Olizo ever again, just because I think that they're overpriced and not built well, and they don't stand behind their products. And I will happily tell anyone who asks what I think about the company, just because I was so dissatisfied with them. In the end, at this point in my life, I'm not saying things won't be different in the future, but I've kind of settled on that's where I like to buy my irons, is sort of the mid-price range, something that gives a little bit more features and lasts a little bit longer than the super cheap ones. But I also try to stay away from the super expensive ones because I just don't think that they're worth it, or at least I don't think Olizos are worth it. So that has been my experience with the irons that I have sewn with over the course of 20 years. If you enjoyed this video and feel like you got some value out of it, I would appreciate it so much if you would give me a like. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.